Wednesday. That means it would have been Leo's first game. So it's CJ's story. Mr. Siege, what's your story?
My story's gonna be
Stormtrooper Life Part 2? No?
Is there a part 2?
Yeah, there could be lots of different parts.
I'm just gonna do the Stormtrooper part 2.
Really? Okay. Okay, lay down. Lay down and enjoy the story. So we last left off. Stormtrooper, was it 135 and 140? Is that right? Yeah, Stormtrooper 135 and 140 had just gotten into a laser battle with a pirate. And the pirate had traveled around with a monkey alien, and they took the stolen droids, put them on a ship, together with an old man and a boy, and sped off. And so 135 radioed the Star Destroyer that was above Tatooine and said, "This is 135. We have a rogue spaceship trying to leave airspace." "Roger that. This is the Star Destroyer Lucky 84. We're on our way." Lucky 84 was not the real name of the Star Destroyer, but that's what the guys that were on it called it. Lucky 84 started to bank right and try to intercept the ship, and they did a diagnostic of it, and it came up as the Millennium Falcon. "I've heard of that ship," said the captain. "It's a known pirate ship, and it's come up in several incidences across the galaxy." And so they opened fire. And the first mate said, "You shouldn't open fire. What if you destroy it?" And he said, "Then the plans will be destroyed with it." And so he just kept on shooting. But all of a sudden, it disappeared. And they said, "Where did it go?" And the first mate said, "No ship that small could have hyperspace. It's got to be around here somewhere. Maybe it has a cloaking device." And so they started looking for this ship called the Millennium Falcon. And 135 and 140 reported to their guy on the ground, their commander. He said, "What happened?" And he said, "Well, we tried to stop them, but they opened fire immediately when we got there. A few men died. And then we radioed the Star Destroyer, Lucky 84, and it's in pursuit. I just heard back from Lucky 84. They lost the ship." And he said, and T-135 said, "There's no way they could lose the ship. We saw it take off and head straight for them." He said, "No, they saw the ship, and then it just disappeared." And T-140 said, "That means it has hyperdrive on it." And they said, "What? Hyperdrive, haven't you heard? It's a small hyperspace drive that could go on a ship that size." And this was news to the Empire. And so they radioed to the Lucky 84 and said, "It probably had what's called a hyperdrive. It's a small hyperspace engine that can fit on a ship that size." Said the pilot. "Well, where were they headed?" And they said, "I don't know, we'll find out." And they asked T-135, "Where were they headed?" And T-135 said, "I'll check with my spy." And so T-135 and T-140 went through the streets of Mos Eisley until they found the spy. And they said, "Spy, where were those guys headed?" And the spy said, "Uti-chapa-putu," which means you have to give me more money. And T-140 said, "We already paid you, and we need to know the information that we paid for." Wochakakatutu, which means that wasn't our deal. And T-135 said, "Listen, there's lives at stake, maybe even the whole Empire. If they destroy our home base, then we can't protect anybody." And he pushed the spy up against the wall, and he said, "Now tell me where they were headed." And the spy said, "Coco Chapa," which meant space, home base. And he said, Yeah, you know about our home base, the Death Star, we call it, because it's death to all pirates. Kuchitapatuti, Lalakukutnamano, which meant that's where the ship is headed, but it's not. The Death Star is not what you think. And T-140 said, all right, we got the information. Let's report back. And they got on their comms and said, we know where the ship is headed. It's headed towards our home base. And the commander got on the comms and said, I was afraid of that. They must have information that's going to destroy the base right away. We've got to intercept that ship. We'll warn the Death Star. Meanwhile, you two guys get back on to a shuttle, get up to the Lucky 84, and it'll take you to the Death Star. Good work. And so they got on to a shuttle and went up to the Star Destroyer known as Lucky 84. And the captain greeted them and said, are you the two troopers that cracked the case? And they said, yep. Our spy told us that pirate ship is headed straight for our home base. We've got to intercept it. The captain said, we're just about to enter hyperdrive. Sit down and buckle up. And so the Death Star the Star Destroyer headed towards their home base, known as the Death Star. And they were about 20 minutes in hyperspace, and then it came out. And they had never seen the Death Star before. It was huge as a planet. And it had a big radar dish in the middle. And T-135 said, look at the size of that thing. And T-140 said, yeah, it's impressive. The galaxy should never have pirates again because this is going to protect us all. And so they got on a shuttle and flew down to the Death Star. And there they went to Docking Bay 264. And they saw that everybody had already captured the ship, but there was nobody on it. And they saw one of the commanders, a general. He had black armor on, and they knew his name. His name was Darth Vader.
I knew
he was
would be in the story.
He was the hero of the whole empire. He had single-handedly fought against the pirates and almost got the plans back himself. And T-135 said, look, it's Darth Vader. And T-140 said, yeah, don't mess with him, though. And Darth Vader came up to them and said, come with me. And they followed him, and they were like, wow, we're walking with Darth Vader. And he got onto the ship and said, you stand here, guard this ship. And a scanning crew came by. And the scanning crew said, he said to the scanning crew, scan every bit of this ship. I want you to be looking for all signs of life. I sense a presence here I haven't sensed in a long time. Right, Lord Vader. And Darth Vader took off, and T-135 and T-40 were guarding the entrance to this pirate ship called the Millennium Falcon. And the scanning crew went up the ramp. And they started scanning, and they could hear the scanner. Wah, 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 wah. And then they heard a scuffle. And T-135 turned and looked. And then he heard one of the scan guys say, hey, could you give us a hand? And he motioned to T-140, let's go up and help him out. And they walked up the ramp. They walked down one of the hallways inside the pirate ship. And all of a sudden, it was the monkey alien. And he went, and he bashed one of them to the ground. It was T-140. And T-140 couldn't even get up. And before he could raise his weapon, they blasted him. T-135 woke up. And so did T-140. They were in the hospital. They were in a Bacta tank, floating in their underwear. It was full of lots of Bacta that regenerates you. And they looked through the glass, and there they saw Darth Vader. And Darth Vader pushed a button, and they could hear him talking. And he said, what happened to that ship I told you to guard? And T-135 couldn't talk because he had a respirator. And Darth Vader said to the medic droid, "Drain these tanks. I need to talk to these soldiers immediately." And the tanks were drained. And they were pulled out and disconnected from the tubes and put into some medical beds. And then they heard the sound. And Darth Vader entered their room. And he said, "I need to ask you some questions about what happened at your post. But we'll hear the rest of the story later. Because that is the end of part 2
We just
Stormtrooper Life.
Okay, it's 10:40.